Loss is this strange, powerful, inconsistent consistency in life. You can't escape this experience. But the effect it has on each of us can be vastly different. It can destroy and demoralize the lives we live. Isolate, changing the social structures we confine ourselves to. Leaving us barren, craving any experience no matter how painful it is. Just that it might be an experience where we get to feel something. But sometimes, it can also be a powerful motivator. Change is a natural necessity in life, and our ability to deal with change is a big part of what defines us as people.
Spectacular, spectacular
Spider-Man. Spectacular, spectacular
Spider-Man! Spectacular, spectacular Spider-Man!
Spectacular.
Obviously, spoiler warning for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So, Spider-Verse, in my personal opinion, is probably the best one of the recent Spider-Man films. And if it wasn't for the Raimi trilogy, it probably would have been the best one of all time. A lot of care was taken while making this movie. The amount of inside Spider-Man jokes and references in this movie is just phenomenal. But it's not just that. The amount of care and details that have gone into the art style and the imagery shown. This movie spends a lot of time dissecting the Spider-Man mythos. What is Spider-Man? How does he act? And who can be Spider-Man? But personally, I feel the most interesting aspect of this dissection is Spider-Man's relationship with loss. Everybody knows the story. Boy gets bit. Boy gets power. Uncle dies. And with great power comes great responsibility. The loss of Uncle Ben is intrinsically tied with how Peter Parker becomes Spider-Man. But this story isn't about Peter Parker. This movie follows Miles Morales, who once again, spoiler warning, becomes Spider-Man after Peter Parker dies. Loss and change follows Miles throughout this movie. Spider-Man dies. Then Miles is just expected to take his place. He's never really given the chance to grieve or to mourn the loss of his hero. He does quickly find a mentor in Peter B. Parker, but he never really gets the chance to just stop. He starts learning how to become Spider-Man, but he doesn't really sync up with his powers. Nor does he get his own variation on the costume, like all the other Spider-Men do. It's not until he experiences a loss. A real loss. Miles, unfortunately like Peter, loses his uncle. The scene following shows Miles experiencing the 5 stages of guilt. Denial starts shortly after he finds out his uncle is the Prowler. Then, after his uncle dies, Miles experiences spurts of anger. After this, he begins to bargain with Peter, asking him to let me make him pay. Then, whilst he is alone in his room, surrounded by blue, but then he finally accepts and becomes Spider-Man. The thing is, Miles isn't the only one to experience loss in this film. All of the Spider characters do. All of them experience loss. I could probably even make the argument that each of them represent a different stage of grief. However, it's not just the Spider-Man characters that deal with loss in this film. It's everybody. Every single character in this movie experiences loss. There's this common idea that in order for somebody to be a hero, they have to experience some great loss in their life. That they have to be some great victim of some even greater tragedy. But honestly, that's not something I believe. I don't think that the point is to be a hero we must experience loss, but rather it's a response to loss. Miles doesn't become Spider-Man when he experiences loss. He becomes Spider-Man when he deals with loss. He accepts what's happened and moves forward, taking responsibility for his actions, and starts to make a plan for how he is going to move forward. Other characters in this movie also experience loss, and they don't handle it as well. And as a result of this, their lives suffer. The main example, and the one Miles is opposed against, is Kingpin. Kingpin loses his family in this film, but he never actually accepts that. He stays in denial the entire film. blaming Spider-Man and others for his loss, thinking he can just rip open a portal and everything will go back to normal. But this is exactly what makes Kingpin one of the most tragic characters in this film. Kingpin lost his family before they died. Kingpin lost his family when they caught him fighting against Spider-Man. This is what makes Kingpin's denial so tragic. He's not willing to change and he just wants everything to go back to normal. But his life was never normal. He continues to act the same way. So even when he does meet his new family, he ultimately loses them too. I feel this is the message the film is trying to get across. When facing loss, we have to change. We must change. It's important that we learn to accept the things we can't control in our lives and learn how to deal with loss and move forward. Hey, bit of a lower energy video this go round, but if you liked it,
share, like, and subscribe to Angry Eyes.
Thank you, babe. Also, if you have an opinion or a different opinion or anything like that, you should comment it down below. It would mean the literal world to me.
I have a different opinion.